I truly believe a part of what makes something special is the fact that we do have to work for it. In the moment, it doesn't feel great or pretty, but looking back on it, you're like, man, that's some of the greatest times of my life. I got to find out who I was in those moments.
The word ugly is a perspective.
Good point. Good point. You're right. You're right.
But if we're talking about process, if we're talking about how everything builds, right? This is a part of me becoming something else, right? That means it was a part of the process. It's ugly if you label it as ugly, but it's really just a part of who you are. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast. Again, with the fellas.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I gotta say this, Martell. I feel like King Arthur's court the way we set up right here today.
This is nice. I like this.
Yeah, it is. We're gonna have to make this the norm.
We smooth back again, Mr. Michael Wright.
All right.
Honored to be here. You know, I enjoyed the first time and looking forward to this time.
Well, you didn't see the fine print of the contract.
Uh-oh.
You part of the team now. Just so you know. You got drafted.
I made it.
So today, actually, Pastor Rod and Martell, could you tell the people what we're talking about today?
I'll do my best. Okay. Now, today, what we're going to look at today is basically, you ever watch sports and the game, your team might have won or lost, but it's just the ugly win. It wasn't pretty. You don't even know if you should be excited about the way they won the game. And we use this term ugly win. So we want to talk about an ugly win. What's an ugly win as it relates to our lives? And is it truly ugly? Because actually Mike kind of threw this in our group text and we're like, hey, we need to talk about this. So that's what I think we need to dig into today, figure out what an ugly win really is and what that means.
So Mike, I mean, when you were talking about it inside of the group text, could you just explain a little bit of what led to that?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll just be totally honest and transparent. I was having one of those days. I was actually having one of those weeks. You know, it was the first week of the new year and we had all these plans to go into, and it kind of wasn't working the way I thought it would. And I can't remember if it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday, but I just woke up, you know, things kind of got off to the wrong foot, and then it just kind of spiraled, and I'm like, man, today is not working out the way I thought. And things just kind of shifted. You know, my wife stepped in and my contractor stepped in on some of the business aspects, and it kind of shifted me into gears. And before I knew it, we actually had some positive momentum. And by the end of the day, when I sat down and I kind of looked and did a review of the day, I'm like, man, today was actually a good day. It didn't feel like it in the moment, and it reminded me of back when I played sports and my coaches used to say, listen, it wasn't pretty, but we got the win, you know. Man,
when you said today was a good day, I was thinking about Ice Cube. Ice Cube. Yeah, I was like, it came to head. But yeah, that's, I mean, I never thought about things like that, but man, there's a lot of ugly wins we have in life when you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
Because what you just described, and it made me think about, you know, you working on something, and I like grew up working on cars and doing stuff like that. So every once in a while you work on a car and you can't figure out what's going on with it. Yeah. And you like taking all this stuff apart. You know, you're like, man, you kind of scratching your head. You kind of like getting upset a little bit, frustrated, walking away, coming back. And then finally something clicks. And then you figure out, oh, man, it might be the coil. And then you go put it on. Now, you done wasted, I shouldn't say wasted, you done spent the whole day trying to figure it out. You done hours, you just, you know, and then this one little thing, and you get it fixed, you get it run, you got that satisfaction. To your point, you're like, man, but I learned all these things while I was taking all this stuff apart. I learned how to decipher the problem better.
And to me, that's the beauty of any process that we go through is beauty that we're picking up some of these breadcrumbs along the way. Like, you know, you guys probably heard me say a million times, the process, you know, embrace the process, because once we're
gonna get you a shirt to say the process.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because Martell was saying we were having a quick chat before the cameras started rolling, and he was just like, man, you know, I think he said, you know, I'm finally really just stepping into that, that mindset and that mind frame. And as he was telling me, I was just thinking like, man, it's a beautiful thing, because I really believe once you get from this side of thinking of, about the process, like dreading the process, and you just fully embrace it, I think that's really when your life is going to change.
True that. You got something in your mind, Martell, I can tell.
No, so the concept of an ugly win, I think it is. There's a few different things that I definitely want to take out of this before we wrap up. We're not close to.
I was about to say, well, this is gonna be the fastest session ever.
But it reminds me, I was in Atlanta one time, and there's this lady. She has this brand, this apparel brand. It's called Do It Ugly, and that's immediately what it made me think of, because, the saying goes, "Done is better than perfect, because perfect never gets done." And her whole thing is about do it ugly. You might not know the full picture right now. You might not have all the pieces exactly, but most people never get started because they're waiting on that thing to be perfect.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes you just got to do it ugly.
Yeah, no. I like that term. But man, how do we? Okay, so this is today for tomorrow, right? So we have topics, but everything's centered around God. So man, winning ugly. How do you win ugly? When you're serving God. That's the other part of it. I was trying to grasp it. I mean, what are you guys' thoughts on that? I mean,
So my thought is that's when faith really comes into the picture, right? Because the whole thought in our faith is that God knew what was going to happen regardless. The plan may have not been revealed to us yet, and so we're dazed and confused and looking, like what's going on, and I don't have any energy. But God knew the whole time. And I think a part of life is seeing how we react to different things.
Yeah.
It's not what you do, but it's after you get hit in the mouth, how you respond.
Yeah.
To me, that's what separates non-achievers from high achievers.
Definitely. What came to me immediately was the story of how David was picked. When he was in the field. There was, because God's looking at the heart, right?
Yeah.
So we might think, man, I don't got the right clothes on to go to church today. I can't go to church because I don't got my shoes. I ordered them, but they ain't get here yet. And it's like we got all these things going on in our head for reasons why we can't start, reasons why we can't do something, or all the things that we put up, all of our what is it called? Negative thought patterns, or something along those lines. But
some psychologists know what we're talking about.
Some psychologists,
Right?
Yeah.
People probably know.
Yeah.
But the summary of that is we talk ourselves out of it.
Yes.
But in the context of God knows he put inside of you everything that you needed for it. So he planted that dream in you, but you don't think you can do it. Because it's so big and it's so great in your head, but it's like, no, I gave you everything you need. And you're like, well, I need to, get this education. Let me get this degree first before I start doing this thing. He's like, no, you have everything. Get moving.
Yes.
Now.
Yes. And it's not going to be pretty. I mean, I think, and that's the other thing too, as we sit here and talk, both of you guys are kind of throwing it out there. God knows, like you said.
Yep.
And then you talked about David, which I think is a great example, because like you said, he was a shepherd. And when Samuel came, God told him to go see. That's where you're gonna find the next king.
Yep.
So they brought out all his brothers, and David was kind of a runt. It compared.
They talked about how all the brothers looked like.
Yeah.
It's like
So, but he chose David.
Yep.
But it wasn't like boom. At that point, David became king, was anointed. David had to win ugly. He had to basically. For one, he fought Goliath, right? He wasn't nobody. He wasn't a soldier. Right. He just said, "Hey, I go out there and do a slingshot, bam, knocked him out."
Right.
And he didn't become king then either. And I'm gonna shut up in a minute. But the point though is that the king saw, he was cool with David and all that, but then he realized he's gonna be king. So David had to run for how many years from Saul before he became king? So it was a big gap. So he had to win ugly. He didn't become king. And it was just an easy path. It was an ugly path.
Yep.
But God knew.
The beautiful thing about an ugly win is the fact that by you going through all these trials and tribulations, that actually makes you a lot more prepared to be a king.
Yes.
You can't really be a king if you don't understand what it is to be a common person,
Yeah.
right? You can't be a good king. Right? A good king.
Yeah.
You know, it's very difficult to be a good general without having not ever been a soldier, because you don't understand what it feels like putting your life on the line and being in the actual battlefield. It's the difference between calling shots from a desk versus you've been out there. You understand that these are the feelings that come along with being on the front line. And one other thing, I wanted to go back to something that you said, Martell. When you said getting it done is better than perfect because perfect never gets done.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I actually reposted that when I saw you, because I was like, man, this is a great quote, because I really want everybody to just take a moment and just understand what that means and what it means to you, what it could mean to you. Just get started. Whatever's on your heart, don't worry about having all the answers. Don't worry about, having all the plan. God's gonna reveal things at the right time. You gotta get started. And that's why I'm like, man, that's such a great quote. I actually told some other people about that quote this week, because I'm like, I gotta share it. It impacted me. It's a part of our duty to pay it forward.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I didn't want to let that moment go by without just like, man, that's a great quote. You gotta keep them coming.
I want to pick up back off of what you said too, though, because you went back in, because Coach Mike, of course, he went back into the process, and like on to your point as well, we're talking about an ugly win here. David had all that time. He was being chased. They were trying to kill him before he became king.
Yeah.
God already said, like, no, that's going to be the king. But then there was that gap. There was that waiting period. There was that work that had to be done. And I'm certain that everything that happened in between that, him battling Goliath, him being chased, and him not killing the dude when he had the chance, this all made him who he was so he could be prepared to be king.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so when you talk about this process, ugly wins, we get something, we get a goal, we get an objective, we get some sort of dream that we're trying to chase, and then, some of us might stop, but some of us might be going, and then we run into an obstacle, and then we think, well, you know what, maybe this isn't for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just, pack up.
Just quit. Yeah, just quit.
I should just stop, because there's just no way to get there.
You know what's funny? It is. You know, it's funny because it makes me think about when I was in school, when we were all in school at one time, right? The way things used to be explained, it seems so simple. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to have a business plan, you got to have a great idea, and go ahead, be an entrepreneur, you'll be successful. It's kind of like the road to success is a straight line. But in reality, we know that's not true.
No.
The road to success is
peaks and valleys.
It's really unique because the reality is, if you're doing something, you have to really love what you're doing, especially when it is something like an entrepreneurial type of role, because you're going to go through moments that are going to completely test every fabric in your body.
True that.
And nobody else is going to believe in you. And you have to see this vision that is based on it. You don't even know what you'll question it at times.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's going to keep you going is just that every day I think about this. For some reason, every day I think about this. I want to do it. I can't let it go. It's literally in the fabric of my DNA. And to me, in my opinion, I'm not saying this is fact. In my opinion, you need some of that in order to be successful.
I think you need all of that. And I think, one thing, knowing, at least the three of us sitting around this table, we know that God is who we get direction from. So that fact that it's in your spirit, it's in your mind every day, that's your confirmation. Hey, okay, God, this is something you want me to do.
Because there's a reason.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be there. You're not just, you didn't, a lot of times you didn't ask for this because it's not the easy road. You could have took much easier road. All of us sitting at this table, humbly speaking, of course, but we've all had some level of success in our lives. We could easily be going down different paths. I truly believe what we're doing is a part of us stepping into God's purpose. And it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do, but it's a part of the right thing that we need to be doing for us and for others.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
And the same thing. It's like, I think it's really interesting because we was having this conversation. We have like a morning call a while back. And I also talked to someone else, and I realized that this is a very common thought. When you're an entrepreneur or an artist or anybody who's like going after something, right? You start moving down your lane, and there's always difficulties, there's always obstacles, but you know, some of them you get over quicker than others.
Yep.
But then there's the point in time where you have to make a decision where that's not easy, okay? But it's also one that now questions your prior thoughts. Now, and to put a little bit more color on it, say you're an entrepreneur, you've been at this thing, you've been grinding this thing out, but now the business ain't going that well.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe there's some things that you need to consider. Maybe there's some people that you gotta let go.
Yeah.
Maybe you gonna need another income.
No, yeah.
To keep the dream alive.
To keep the dream alive.
Yes.
I was talking to somebody a few months ago. He called me because he was thinking about, like, he's a chef. He's trying to really make it as a chef. Like, he's been working at these different places. I mean, his business has not been moving, so he was questioning if he should even keep going.
Gotcha.
Like, if he should even do it anymore. And so he was like, man, I got this opportunity to do this job, but does that mean that I've given up? And I'm like, and I can remember back to our conversation,
Yes,
the same
yes.
thing. And then, of course, the Holy Spirit came, and it was strong. I'm like, I talked to this dude like he was my son. Like, it was so much emphasis, because I'm like, no, it does not mean that you're done. It does not mean your dream is over. It doesn't mean that you can't still achieve it. Look, sometimes you gotta win ugly. Like, you gotta just make it work.
But you know, and as we sit here and talk about this, though, you know, I just keep reflecting, just, you know, and we're not putting everything out there for y'all because y'all not ready for it. But the thought though, I think about just school, college. I mean, well, even high school, college, work life, all the different things. I'm trying to think, what clean wins have I had? And, you know, and it's not. There's some, but it's very few. Most of the things that I'll say that God had for me took that path that Mike shared. That it was not pretty looking, but it was like, you know, when you took it, you became, to your point, you know, if you want to be king, you want to be, you know, you ascend to wherever God has you. You got to be ready for it, and for you to be ready for it, you got to be able to see the good and the bad of what you're dealing with.
And on that road, there's the sifting process.
Yeah.
Any significant dream, I truly believe that the bigger your dream is, just know that the bigger the obstacle is that's going to try to stop you from getting it.
Well, because if it wasn't bigger, everybody'd be there.
My coach used to always say, if it was easy, everybody would do it. Going to your point, the fact that you do have to scratch and claw for that win, I think that's what makes it special. Because if you think about it, the things that have come easy in your life, the humanness in us causes us not to really value that.
You don't appreciate it.
If someone gives you 5 Lamborghinis every year, every single year, you're not
special of a car.
It's nothing special. After year 2, maybe not even a full year, you're kind of like, all right, you know, I kind of want to trust.
You want one?
Yeah, you want one? I got a car. Look,
because it's like it was given to you. It doesn't matter. But
you didn't work for it.
You didn't work for it. You didn't have to scratch and claw for it. I truly believe a part of what makes something special is the fact that we do have to work for it.
Yeah.
And like you said, in the moment, it doesn't feel great or pretty. But looking back on it, you're like, man, that's some of the greatest times of my life. I got to find out who I was in those moments.
Key.
There it is.
That is it. That's that. Go ahead.
I mean, you can't. When we were talking about change before, you don't develop if there's no sort of discomfort. Like,
You're right.
If everything is just, I know it. If everything is, this is easy, and it's a no-brainer, then therefore everything that you needed to do, everything that you're trying to do, you already have. You don't need to grow at all. You don't need to develop at all. You don't need to talk to anybody else. You got it. Take care of that. That's fine.
Life is boring, though.
Life is boring.
It's boring.
Right. You will never
and you don't like you said, you don't value it.
Yeah.
You don't value it.
When it comes at ease, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's just the whole car thing. And look, if you can give your kid a car, go for it, do it. We're not saying don't do it. We're just telling you, listen to what's being said.
Yeah.
But I remember. And this is in the family, so I'm not giving no names, but someone was in high school was given like a pretty much a brand new ride. It was a nice ride. I mean, actually, I was an adult, grown man, married. It was better than it's better than the ride we had. I was like, man, I can't afford that puppy. Yeah. But see, you give it to a 16-year-old, and I remember Sherry saying this. She said, "What they got to look forward to now?"
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because now that first car was here, so that next car, if it's not better than that,
It feels like a disappointment.
it do.
When the reality is, it's not, because you never really earned the first one.
Correct.
It felt like a prize, but it was an unearned prize.
Yes.
So,
Exactly. You're right. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, it just goes back to the point that if you don't have to earn it, it doesn't really feel good. Another point that you said earlier that I didn't want to lose was the fact that, and I remember the conversation we were saying about when we're being an entrepreneur, we're going to have to make some tough decisions, right?
Definitely.
And at some point, we may have to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
And pivoting is not the same as failing. It's not. It's nowhere near. But it can feel like the same emotions at times. But we have to remember that we put emphasis on emotions. Emotions aren't really like, if this was emotion, where like we can't touch it, feel it, smell it.
Exactly.
It's something we create in our head.
Yes.
But it can be so powerful, like fear. If you're afraid of something, it could be literally bugs. I have a sister that is afraid of bugs. And to this day, I just cannot, I'm like, it's like a real fear of bugs. And I don't know where it came from, but it's like, it's very real to her. So we have to respect it, because, it can almost be dangerous. Like if you're driving and you're that afraid and a bee comes in, you can almost crash.
Yeah, you can. It paralyzes her.
But me on the outside looking in is like,
it's a bug.
It's like, man,
get rid of that bug. Yeah.
It's nothing. But that's the thing about emotions and fears. Like we really have to get a hold of our emotions, our mental state, and we have to be around people to help drive this. And that's one thing I can honestly say this past year. Us having a weekly call wasn't my idea. I think it was
Martell. Yeah.
And in the beginning, I was kind of, 6 a.m. Like, I don't know, but I'm like, I know this man, and this man, I think very highly of him. He's like, hey, Mike, I got an idea. I'm like, let me know. He's like, yeah, let's have a call. Like, I'm okay. What time? I'm thinking like 6 a.m. I'm looking at the phone like, Rodney, brother, you know what I'm talking. But I'll say that to say this, man. I honestly can say it's been very fruitful, man. Just, some of the conversations we've had, just even the tone that it kind of shifts my day on. I look forward to the call now, and it's just because the message I'm trying to say to anybody is, look, get you some people that you can just have real, honest, open dialogue with. Because with these two brothers, I just keep it real. I try to keep it real with everybody, but I'm not as personal with everybody. We've had some transparent moments where it's like, look, man, some major things are going on. I need an ear. I need somebody to talk to. Somebody that genuinely is going to hear me, not just to keep score, to figure out if they're hidden in a race, they beat me in the race of life, but just like, no, man, how you doing? And actually listening.
And you hit the key point. I think the one thing, what you bring up, Mike, is the fact that we care and we want each other to succeed. Yeah. And we see that hey, your vision, I see it. I see your vision, I see yours, and I see you getting there. And then we try to work to help each other get there. And that's God doing it. Yeah. And so when we're going through these ugly, I guess, steps sometimes, I wouldn't call them ugly steps. They're steps.
It's just
the grind.
Yeah.
It's like Martell would be like, because he would challenge me, and by the record, it was Martell idea, so I give him all credit. But it's like, you guys to say, like Martell told me last year, like, oh man, what you doing for Christmas and New Year's? You can't do that. You can't have it. You need something better. I'm like, so you challenged me.
Right.
Like, you challenge me. You talk about what you're doing. You're like, hey, man, you got to get the process together, whatever. So that challenging each other, help pushes us through those phases. And to your point, Mike, if you don't have people around you like that, then you're going to be in your own head. You're going to give up.
You're going to be in your own head, and it's going to be a million ideas and imaginary monsters popping up and, obstacles. And it's like, man, the reality goes back to what Martell was saying. Just get started.
Yes.
Done is much better than perfect because perfect never gets done. And that's something that, I'm going to take with me going into this upcoming week. That's going to be the theme of my week. Like let's just get to it, because being totally honest, a lot of times, things are challenging in your head because you're thinking about, all right, I have 100 steps to complete.
Yes.
But a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step.
It does.
It starts with one step. You got to just take it. And then once you take that step, okay, take the next step.
You laid out another one of Coach Mike.
Coach Mike.
What's that?
Original.
Journey 1,000 miles start with one step. That's vintage. Mike.
You know what? Like I said, for the record, somebody I'm sure is gonna say, man, he didn't make that quote. I did not make these quotes up, but I'm the type of person that if I hear something that sticks out, best believe I'm going to add that to my toolbox.
But it's solid. It's solid though. You haven't given us one bad one yet, but yeah.
But you know what? Going back to your point, I think about these things. Or if I come across, I read a lot. And when I read good quotes, I write them down. And I think about them a lot. So when I'm hearing certain things or I see certain things, I'm like, oh,
it comes out.
It comes out. It's not, it's not me. No. It comes through me.
There you go.
It's not me. It's really because a lot of people like, man, I really need it. I enjoy it. And I love the fact that I can say something that touch somebody's ear, but it really isn't. It's not like something I sit around and think about, All right. It's just God sometimes gives me a little something
that's your gift, dog. I'm just you owning it.
I appreciate it.
Martell about to jump in with something.
No, I think just a one major thing that came to my mind when you were expanding on that point about when we had that call. I think a really important thing, and pretty much that covers everything that we've been talking about, is understanding Mike isn't afraid of bugs like your sister, right? So when the bug comes up, his sister, she might jump, she might scream, she might, I don't know, she might run out the room. Right, all the above.
All the above.
The bug didn't change. It might be the same small bug, but that bug comes near Mike, Mike's going to shoot it away.
Yeah.
The difference between the two is perspective.
Yeah.
He understands that the bug is small and he has more power than it. It cannot stop him.
Yes.
And so because his perspective is different about what the bug is, he acts differently about it. So when we're talking about this whole ugly wins, again, that's a perspective thing. The word ugly is a perspective.
Good point. Good point. You're right.
But if we're talking about process, if we're talking about how everything builds, right? This is a part of me becoming something else, right? That means it was a part of the process. It's ugly if you label it as ugly, but it's really just a part of who you are now.
Wow. Now that's real. And actually, so it's beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right?
Yep.
There it is.
So we can look at that grind and call it ugly to get to a point, but we also can look at that grind and say, you know what, it's a thing of beauty because of what it's building.
Yeah, it builds to your story.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And that when you look back on some of these wins where at the time they were very challenging, and almost felt like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get through this. Those were some of the most beautiful times in our lives.
Yeah. Agreed, man. I guess I won't call it. I'll call it the grind. I won't call it ugly. I just look at the moments, and and sometimes you're going through and you're like, man, God, why is this so hard? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And one other thing to reflect on for me, anyway, is that a lot of times it was so hard because I was not being obedient and following the process.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I made the grind. I made it uglier.
And more difficult.
Difficult, yeah, than it had to be. And so, I mean, I think, that's one point I just wanted to bring up too, because I think it's a few points. You said, hey, we say ugly, but that's a perspective. Okay.
It's a perspective.
Yeah. So the win is a win. It could be, you can perceive it as ugly, but I got here.
Win.
It's a win. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that whole, Mike brought up the other point too about the whole thing about, what happens through that process, how you get built up to it. I mean, I just trying to hit a couple of things just to make sure people kind of can grasp on something to say, hey, look, we go through what we go through for reasons.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking we got to enjoy the journey and take the win.
Exactly. And another part of the message that I really want to convey to the people is that we all go through it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nobody's immune. I mean, are you immune to any tough time? Are you immune?
No.
I'm
He's saying you ain't
definitely not
special.
immune. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
To be honest, tell them, say it again. You're not as special as you think. Like, it feels like the world is on you. Oh, what? If I fail, everybody's going to look at me.
Yeah.
To be honest, probably nobody really cares as much as you think.
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of consumed with their own thing.
True.
Yeah.
They're trying to do the best they can with themselves. And so when you have those chances, take those chances, because even if you don't achieve what you thought you would, you're probably going to learn and you're going to be further than you would have been. And you may understand, you know what, I didn't make it there, but it revealed something, and now I'm making a pivot left.
Yeah.
And this is really where I need to be. I didn't know that though, because I thought my path was straight, but I actually needed to be on the left side of it.
Man, when you say pivot, I think about basketball, right? You got your pivot foot.
Yep.
Why do you change your pivot? You change your pivot to get the shot off. And if you don't change your pivot and you're in a situation, you're going to get it blocked.
Yep.
And I look at it like when you say pivot, we got to pivot to get our shot off.
Right.
We do.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think people are just going to sit there and they're going to try to shoot no matter what.
Force their
and they're going to get it blocked every time.
Yeah.
And it's gonna keep happening, because just going back to the whole premise, I firmly believe, like, when God has a lesson for you, that is your lesson. It may come to you in different forms, but you're going to continue to see it throughout your life until you accept it, embrace it, and just get through it. Learn from it.
Yeah, true.
And then I think you can move on. But you can't outrun your lessons in life.
No.
You can't outrun them. You gotta just stand tall, stand firm, and just get through it.
Totally agree. Okay, Martell, you got to bring all this home, man.
We definitely, I think we definitely hit the nail on the head. We're talking about the subject. If you lost it, it was ugly wins.
Yeah.
It's made up of the process. We understand that all things work together for the good of those that love God. So therefore, the perspective that you have should be that this is going to build me.
Yes.
It's a platform.
It's a platform.
Yeah.
And so all the things that we were just talking about, you go through these things, and you will go through these things. You're not going to
Not special.
No,
You're
not special.
no, not one of us.
Yeah.
But just understand that there's a place that you're going, and if you don't stop, and it's God that called you, you're going to get there.
Yeah.
You don't fail unless you stop moving.
No, man, I think looking at the one who saved us, Christ went through a meat grinder.
Oh, that was an ugly win.
That was an ugly win. that was an ugly win for us. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So why would we think it's gonna be pretty for us?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, thank you for tuning in to the Today for Tomorrow podcast. This has been another, I think, a great episode.
Agreed.
And I hope to see y'all next week.
Peace.